You simulate it, sort of, yeah. And the idea with most chiropractic techniques, of course, is HVLA thrusting, high velocity, low amplitude thrusting. So you start with a yellow spring, which is the lightest spring, and you get to the point where you're getting your depth control down with a certain set of parameters. You're doing very well, holding your pre-manipulative tension, thrusting into that, not going too deep, and then you start amping it up a little bit. You move up to a stiffer spring, and then you start going for speed. And believe me, if you can get to exercise number 6, doing a cervical break with the black spring, you've arrived. I guarantee it. So that's what it's all about.
So it's basically a practicing tool.
Exactly. It's not really a simulator. In order for it to be a simulator, it would have to look a lot like those machines that Dr. Triano invented, where there's actually a human body involved. Anything else?
If we don't get the 10 hours in, assumably, was there a set number of expected time?
The only thing that we expect is that you'll do some data sets. I'll give you a little bit of specifics here, okay? Each time you set this thing up for an exercise, you turn it on, you select your parameter settings, and you push go, right? You get 6 warm-up thrusts, 6 thrusts to find that groove, that particular groove in that doctor-patient positioning. On the 7th thrust, the device begins to keep track of your speed and your control. It takes 18 sets to fill the unit. That's the equivalent of approximately 3 hours worth of work. So you wouldn't want to do that all at once. You wouldn't want to put, on the 18th thrust, by the way, 6 warm-ups, 12 actual thrusts, you start over, and you can either select a different exercise or you can simply press 2 and continue with that same exercise. But once it gets to 18 sets of 12, then it says time to download. That's the most important thing. You want to make sure that you can download your information to OrthoNeuro and that it comes through intact. So no, there's no, it's not like we're asking you to do a tremendous amount of work. We want you to run through the systems. You want to make sure that everything works on all your different connections.
Does it matter that we use the same computer the whole time? Like if we're traveling?
Right, no, it doesn't. It doesn't matter. You'll have an account at OrthoNeuro that you can log onto from anywhere. You will need high speed, but that can be DSL, cable, whatever you have. The program for the Dynadjust is on this little thumb drive. When you get to where you're going to be, you must put the program on the computer so that you can interact with the website, of course. But it's not a one-time thing. You can move it from computer to computer, and it's not terribly big. How big is it, Will?
Like 33 or 34 megabytes.
3 or 4 megabytes?
No, 33 or
33, okay. It's a little bigger than I thought. The device also comes with a USB cord, of course, for connecting it to the computer, and a set of exercise tubing for doing simulations where you're holding the weight of the patient's head in one hand and adjusting with the other. We found that this is an incredibly useful little piece of plastic here. You won't believe how real it feels to do it. At Texas Chiropractic College, the students there used about, I think they tested, or they exercised a half hour at a time, 3 times a week. And the men who used the Dynadjust during the course of the study that Dr. Triano and Dr. Combs conducted there, at the end of the study, they were tested on Dr. Triano's true simulator. They were tested on it before, and they trained with the Dynadjust device, and they were tested at the end, after practicing for about an hour and a half a week. The men who used it were 10 times better at performing actual manipulation than the men who didn't use it. The women who used the device were 18 times better. At first, we thought, uh-oh, we've got a problem with our data. Dr. Triano called me and he said, we have a gender bias and it's not just a little one. He said, we've got a real big problem here. And I said, no, we don't. It all depends on where they started from. If you go back and you talk to those students and you find out which of those women were golfers or baseball, softball players, you're going to find that they were starting close to where the men were, And sure enough, the women who were athletic and had upper body strength and coordination did score more like the men. And the men who were smaller in stature, who weren't necessarily terribly athletic, scored more like the women. But when I told him all this, he said, I know, you dummy, I have to be able to prove it though. So we literally had to chase down all of these students and survey them before the study could be published in JMPT. But we did do it, and we proved it, and I think you'll find that it's a pretty solid technology now. The reason it wasn't introduced, there are several. 9/11 is the big one. The company that I was affiliated with back then was a defense contractor. We got to just about the point where we are now when 9/11 happened, and they shelved the project. And they said, we'll get back to you after the war. Well, that war hasn't ended yet. So I bought the company back from them and started over exactly 2 years ago. But it turned out to be a really good thing because in the interim, the Wii technology made this far more capable. The old technology was only able to measure the depth and speed. It couldn't measure the newtons, it couldn't measure the line of drive, things like that. This can measure literally every aspect of the dynamics of the manipulative thrust in any doctor-patient position. Like the Wii, yeah. Anything more? I'm sorry? Do you know, Will? Can we ship
Can you
up there
repeat
yet?
that question?
Can you ship to Canada? Because we were told this morning that you guys were going that far.
If it's that we can ship 1 or 2 to Canada, it's just we're going through a tariff recognition right now. We can do it and we can set it up for you. If you're going to Canada, if you don't want to take it with you, we can ship it there.
Yeah, I probably don't want to cross
It is a little more difficult and a little more expensive.
Don't put this in your carry-on luggage, okay? Yeah, definitely check it, especially nowadays.
What would be the problem with the suitcase as well, right? If they scan the suitcases, I mean, you don't have it in carry-on baggage.
Yeah, but they're much less particular about what goes under the plane than what goes actually inside of it. I haven't ever had a problem with checking it in my luggage, but carrying it on, they get real nervous real fast. I look a little bit like a terrorist, I guess. So who wants to play? Awesome. Okay. Have you all filled out your forms?